Well, the Big 12 spring meetings just wrapped up last week in Orlando, and we heard from both Scott Frost and Terry Mohajir. Over 6 things that I found very interesting coming from both of their mouths that we are going to talk about today. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Charge On. As always, I am your host, Sean Green. Thank you so much, as always, for tuning in. If you haven't already, please like, subscribe, share, do all that you do. We greatly appreciate it. We are in the thick of the offseason. And last week, we kind of took a little pivot from usual UCF content to just talk about really the grander issues in college football, which is the 16-team playoff and everything that's going about it. Obviously, Terry Mohajir spoke, and it seems like the Big 12 is in unison that they want the 5+11 format. He kind of went in depth on that. We're not going to go in depth here today. We are going strictly everything we heard from the Big 12 meetings, UCF related. Scott Frost, if anything, I think this is the most that Scott Frost really has given us since he's been hired. Granted, when he started and when he first talked to all of us, he is very public with saying that first month was not great. The first month was a lot of mixing, matching, figuring out a staff, getting a team together. So I think this was really the first time that reporters got to talk with Scott Frost, and he gave some real insight now where the team is at heading into summer. So we're going to get into all of that today. And, let's just get into it. We don't need to talk anymore. There's 6 things. I have one quote from Terry Mohajir kind of talking about the team in general and kind of what he envisions out of the team. If you want to hear that, I have all of the links down below for what we talk about at a given time in the pod. I want to talk about first, Scott Frost talked about where he feels like the team is at heading into summer and kind of what's happened over this period of time. And I think in a lot of these clips, Scott Frost tells you what he really thinks, but also is holding back. So we're going to play this clip on where he talks about the team and where he feels the team is at heading into summer. And we'll go through all of them, but let's hear from Scott Frost on where the team is at right now.
Challenge for us. We have a good collection of athletes right now, but it's a bunch of individuals right now, and turning that into a team is going to be a big challenge for our players, our coaches, and everybody in the building. We have over 60 new players on our football team right now because of the way college football is and 2 portals and taking over a team that was only about half filled as far as roster spots. So we had a lot of work to do, and I like where we are, but right now, like I said, there's guys in the room that don't know half the people sitting around them. So it's going to be a real test for us to try to get ready to play and develop a team mentality where guys care about each other. First, they just got to know each other.
Now, I do want to shout out Brandon Helwig. I did grab all of these sound bites from his video. It is linked down below if you want the full interview. Go check out UCFSports on YouTube. Brandon Helwig always does a great job. He'll be coming on Charge On, I'm sure, very soon. Scott Frost mentioned, and he mentions this a couple times when he talks about the team. He mentions we've got a bunch of athletes. He mentions that a couple times. And I think somebody that's gone to the practice and seen the players, and I understand what he's saying. And also in Florida, there's a lot of Florida kids, as you know, that Scott Frost really likes to recruit Florida. A lot of the players that got recruited were from Florida. So I think the focal point is he says he sees that this could be a good team. Like, you have the players. The issue that Scott Frost has, and this is what we've tried to kind of emulate to you guys, is you might have some of the top athletes. You might have really talented players on your roster. But the issue is going to be making it a collective unit. And when he says 60 new players, and that most of the guys don't even know who they're sitting next to, that is where, not a cause for concern, because it's June, and you have a lot of time to really formulate and create those bonds. But he isn't wrong. when he got on campus, they're having to hit the ground running. They're having to get a roster put together. They're having to get a coaching staff put together. And before you know it, spring ball's here. And yeah, you've got a bunch of guys that are coming from every single different place in the country sitting in one room. So at that point, yeah, that's tough. And I think Scott Frost knows that. And that's why I said in a lot of these comments, there's confidence, but there's also a cautiousness to not get too excited, to not put all of his chips in one basket and say, I think we're going to do something special, or I think we're going to really make a case this year. He kind of does say that in some of these clips, but he's also cautious to say, again, like, we need to make this a team. We have a lot of individuals, but we don't have a team yet. We have individuals. So let's go to another clip. And this is kind of piggybacking off what he said there about having to add a lot of players and basically field a whole new team, where I think this really puts the nail in the wood a little bit just of how much UCF has had to add this portal cycle.
If there's anybody that has more new players than us, I'd love to hear about it and talk to that coach. But, I don't know about West Virginia with Rich Rod. I think he brought a few from where he was before and had quite a bit of turnover, but I don't know if it would be as much as we had. So, again, I really like the talent we have on the team, but now we got to teach them what we want them to do and develop a team out of those guys, and we'll see how fast we can get that done.
Now, granted, listen, again, he says, I really like the talent that we have on the team. Again, I kind of put that in the same case as athlete, but it's how quickly can we get them to switch their minds and make it a team, right? We have the talent. Can we make them a team? And we mentioned a couple weeks ago, I forgot what we were exactly doing. Maybe it was the schedule preview. And we were talking about the West Virginia situation. And we said, the job that Scott Frost and his staff are going to have to do this year to make this team bowl eligible is going to be impressive if they can do it. Because with Rich Rodriguez at West Virginia, he got to grab players from Jack State to come over and join him. He wasn't, even though he was kind of formulating a new team just like UCF, it's not like Rich Rod was out of the game. He was coaching at a previous spot. He was able to take some of his players to his new spot. Scott Frost didn't have that luxury. He's not coming here straight from Nebraska. Scott Frost obviously went to the NFL, and now he's back in college football. So that made this process a million times harder. And I think he isn't wrong. If you just look around the country, I don't think any team has had it harder to replace a roster than UCF. Not so much that players don't want to come play here. The fact that you have to replace, he said, I think we had 49 players on scholarship when I got here. That's pretty hard to compile a team and then expect them to do well. And I think because it's Scott Frost, there's this aura around Scott Frost where we are just like, he can get them to a bowl game. And I think the way he talks, you generally feel like he can. But there's also we need to make this a team. And if we can't make this a team, it might take a little bit longer than we're expecting. Before we get into more Scott Frost comments, I want to go to Terry Mohajir. Scott Frost talked about kind of the expectations and what he feels, this team could potentially do. But I want to go to Terry Mohajir because Terry Mohajir, obviously the AD, talked to reporters as well. And he gave his thoughts on the team and what he's seen. And I found these very interesting because obviously Terry Mohajir has had a lot of heat come his way from UCF fans. A lot of UCF, and to be fair, I think it is fair heat. A lot of the main sports have not lived up to previous UCF sports. Now, it is the first 2 years in the Big 12. There is some expectation that it's not going to be a hit the ground running and win right away. But I think fans are a little restless and they want teams that are competing and doing well. And I think in terms of football, this is what Terry has seen. And we'll talk about this a little bit. This is what Terry has seen in the first couple months of the new Scott Frost era.
I think you'll see better, just getting better. Our expectations, I want to see progress and get better. The league's still really good. The league didn't get any worse. Are you talking about like record or I think we're better.
Expectations are for the season
To win every game. Is it likely? Probably not. But you know what? Yeah, expectation. You go into every game. You go into every game and you want to win the game.
Is there something instructive in Arizona State's rise last season that the Big 12 is wide?
I think you saw that they had a really good quarterback last year, and we saw their talent. They played really well as a team. You went to our game last year. Do you think their talent level was that much better than ours? I think everybody would say no, but they were. I think they had one position that was cut above, and he's coming back, and I think that's a huge. And that's what Scott's working through. He's working through the quarterback and his offense. Defensively, I think we're a little ahead. I think we got a really good defensive coordinator. We've got a lot of good pieces that we've put in there. I think we'll have probably the best personnel defensively, collectively since I've been here. And then, I watch more defense than I do the offense. And then I think we'll be all right.
High praise for Alex Grinch there. High praise. Now I will say, there's a couple things that I agree with what, Terry said, and there's some other things I disagree with. Defensively, I do think the defense, he took a little dig at Ted Roof, I'm not going to lie. There was a little dig there. I could see what he's saying in terms of personnel. I could see what he's saying. I like the defensive scheme that they're running. Is it going to translate on the field in an Alex Grinch system? I have no idea. But I do see what he means there. I'm excited for the defense, but again, there is a hesitancy. It is, again, I'm going to say the name again, Alex Grinch. I think everybody deserves another chance. But again, there has been a lot thrown that way. So to come out publicly and say how confident you are in the defense and the personnel and that it's the best since you've been here is very interesting, especially with how the team was put together. Now, I think he said there's a lot of confidence that they gave. Like he said in a previous clip, just, the job that Scott Frost and his staff have done. And I meant to cut it, or I meant to get it, but one of the answers that he gave was that one of the players came up to him and said that coaches are afraid to coach hard in this new NIL era, and that he feels that this coaching staff doesn't do that. They coach them hard. And I think that gives you confidence that in this new era, the authenticity of Scott Frost and his staff is going to shine through a lot of that. Terry saying that he feels that, compared to Arizona State, really the talent was comparable. The only difference was quarterback. Sure, I think it's easy to say that. I also think coaching was a big difference, and I think that's why he wanted to let Gus go. The coaching difference was massive. And if you looked at every game last year for UCF, in every single game, there was a coaching decision that was made that lost UCF the game. So I think in terms of that, yeah, I think comparable. The players were comparable. UCF almost beat Arizona State. They didn't have basically one of their best players in Cam Scatterbo playing UCF. So that I think you have to take that into account. But I don't think it's just the quarterback. I think it's coaching as well, which to Terry's point, and to credit Terry, the move was made. Even though it was really Gus's move, I think that was something UCF wanted to do anyway. So on that, let's go back to Scott Frost. Scott Frost talked about his expectations. And I think Scott Frost has been very particular and very careful in what he said when it comes to expectations. And he doesn't necessarily say what his expectations are, again, in this clip, but he definitely gives more than usual. Take a listen.
We'll see. I'm excited to play games with these guys, but we have a lot of work to get to before then. It's a tough league. Watching the tape, there's a lot of good teams in the league. But we got some talent here, and a lot of the talent is fueled by the fact that there's so many good players around our area in Florida, in the Southeast, and a lot of guys that want to play at a place like UCF, and that definitely helps us. But, we're 4 returning starters, I think, that were full-time returning starters on our whole team. Not very many that played much last year. Not a lot of returning production. So our coaching staff's going to have to do a really good job to get some talented guys that haven't played much up to game speed really quick.
He says a good amount there. Obviously, the "we'll see" is a big one. The "we'll see" kind of tells you everything that you need to know. But I think he really goes into he feels confident in the guys that he has on this roster. He feels confident that they can really help whoever the quarterback is. He feels like they have the skill players. It's just about a lot of the guys that are going to be on the field haven't really gotten the game reps. We've told you, like, in terms of, receivers, the two incoming freshmen, Wade Charles and Carl Jenkins, to me, are two starting caliber receivers just this year alone. And we've said, like, is that going to be a detriment to UCF? And I don't think we'll know until week 1. Until you put them out on the field, until you see them run routes, until they get into that action, you're not going to know. And also, to be fair, I don't think it's fair to put that much pressure on an incoming freshman. I don't care how good they are. If they struggle a little bit, you have to kind of go through those growing pains and understand that. I think at the quarterback position, he was asked. Scott Frost was asked about it. I didn't cut it because it was one of those answers where he didn't really give you anything. But don't make any mistake. He said that they need a competitor. They need a competitor in that room. And it's going to come down to quarterback. Like it is. I think UCF always and will always have skill position players to make plays. I don't think that's ever going to be a problem for UCF. The question is going to be the quarterback. And I think Scott Frost genuinely knows that. And he emulates that, saying, at the end of the day, yes, there's going to be a lot of guys out there. I think he mentions in a clip coming up, or he might have already mentioned it, the 4 starters, that they only have 4 returning starters from the previous team. And I think that is a point that needs to be kind of hammered home a little bit. But I think he knows that skill position-wise, they have the guys to do it. It's going to come down to, if the quarterback play is good, then they can shock some people. And I think that's where the excitement comes of, we can shock some people this season. But it's going to come down to, can we make this a team and not individuals? And do we have a quarterback on the roster? He's not going to say that, but that is kind of what it comes down to. Now, this next one I kind of don't want to get too deep into, but Scott Frost talked about only wanting the one portal window. And I want you to understand, these next 2 clips kind of go hand in hand, but I want you to listen to what he's saying about how stressful it is as a head coach in today's day and age with this.
Yeah, 2 windows is crazy. And it's unanimous with the football coaches, at least in the Big 12, that I can speak to, that it's got to be one portal. You spend all that time recruiting guys and retaining guys, and spend more time with them in the weight room and even more time on the football field, pouring into them and trying to get them ready to play, and then they leave. And roster management is impossible, trying to figure out how many high school kids you can take, because you don't know how many of your kids are still going to be there, how many other kids you're going to take after spring ball. It's too much, honestly. So I know we were unanimous in agreement on the fact that, however it happens, we all hope there's just one portal.
Yeah, and I think this is a greater conversation. But for UCF, especially this past cycle, it would have been really beneficial to only have that one cycle. You to look at a guy like Jason Johnson, and I don't want to keep bringing him up, but he decides to come back to UCF. He enters the portal, but decides to come back. If they finally decide to only have one portal, then Jason Johnson is on your roster for the next year. But because you have that second portal window, teams call and say, we can offer you more money, and a guy like Jason Johnson leaves. And I think for Scott Frost, a guy that just wants to build a team, that can be extremely frustrating. Scott Frost has already said that he's had to renegotiate with players like 5 times during the actual spring. And that's not building a team. That's building individuals wanting to figure out what their personal wealth is going to be, which is fine. Like, you want to find out what money you're making. You want to renegotiate. If you're important to the team, I understand that. But to have the 2 portal windows is stressful for any coach. But for Scott Frost, this past cycle, it was probably really ridiculous. So I think moving forward, I think everybody is pushing for that just 1 portal window in the fall, so you can lock in your roster and you don't have to go through, post-spring players entering. And I get why players want to do it, because post-spring you might realize you're not going to get an opportunity in the next season and you want to look elsewhere. But I also think that will help the game a lot better, because players, once they make their decision, you have to wait a year. And you can have unlimited entries, but you only get that 1 chance a year to enter. I think that is key. And I think for Scott Frost, especially with all the players they've added, they lost not a bunch of guys, but a good chunk of guys in that second window where they could have kept them and they could have been locked. This next one, this is the final one. We're going to go a little shorter episode today, but this next one, Frost talks about the responsibilities in recruiting. So the responsibilities of being a head coach in today's college football landscape, but also selling UCF and what UCF, how do you pitch to recruits on why to come to UCF?
Yeah, it's fast and furious. Right when you get done with one thing, here comes the next thing you got to do. It's really a lot on college coaches now. It's fun and it's rewarding, but it's a lot of work. But I'm excited to get some guys on campus and show them what we're all about, and see if we can start building it through the high school recruiting ranks a little bit.
What's the story you sell about UCF when you're out there?
UCF sells itself, first and foremost, the location in the city and the campus and the university. And when they come, one thing we really work hard on is being genuine and authentic. There's a lot of recruiting that goes on that isn't like that, and I think that helps us attract the right kind of person that doesn't want all the recruiting hype, that just wants a place where people are going to care about them and be real with them. And that's gotten us the right kind of kids before.
Gotten you the right kind of kids. Selling the city. Being honest. I think those are key things, not just for UCF, but in general for the college football landscape. Not boasting up a player and lying and telling them what they want to hear to get them in the building. Because at the end of the day, if you do that and then it's not what they envision, their thought process changes. Right? Their thought process is different. So I think in terms of the responsibilities, I think it kind of goes into the Gusism, if you want to call it a little bit, how in today's college football, you really truly now know how many responsibilities the head coach has. I think when Gus said it, we kind of didn't disagree with him, but it was almost, it felt like just excuses. Like it felt like, oh, like this isn't working because of all the responsibilities, and you take the play calling back, but you say you need it and you need to do it, and it's the best case for the football team, but then you give it up again because of the responsibilities. It just felt like it was always being used as the scapegoat. Scott Frost says it, and you truly understand, especially in the last 5 months, how many responsibilities of a head coach. And when he talks about it, it doesn't sound like he's making an excuse for anything. It's more so just really making people understand how many real responsibilities a head coach has to do and has to have his hand in. And not just him, but all of the coaches. I think that's also something that's kind of pushed to the side. Is it's not like it's just the head coach. All of the coaches are having to contact players in the transfer portal, recruit, do all that stuff. And I think ultimately, especially in this next recruiting cycle, I think that will reap benefits for UCF. Honesty, being honest with players, showing what UCF is building, I think that's going to be what really sells this staff, but also this team. Both of those things. Because I think when you talk to players and you kind of get a feel for how they feel about the coaching staff, I think it's just a different energy than it was last season. And I think you truly feel like maybe I don't want to use the word special because we don't know how special this can be. But the work in progress, you could feel like if you keep taking the necessary steps, the UCF is on the right track to building something good that can compete in the Big 12. And I don't know what type of season they'll have, but I think just these comments alone and kind of how you see that they're building it make you believe that UCF can compete early with Scott Frost and his new staff. All right, everybody, that's going to do it for this week's episode of Charge On. Please like, subscribe, share, do all that you do. We greatly appreciate it. If you've been on Twitter this week, go check out my Twitter. There's some interesting stuff on there. Again, a little taste of what's to come on the Charge On channel. Not much, but a little taste. We are hard at work. I'm filming this early in the week because we've had shoots all week. So exciting stuff coming to the channel. I keep pushing it. This is at the end of the show. I'm not pushing it at the beginning. So if you're a true Charge On fan, you made it to the end. And that's why I'm telling you what's to come. We've got a bunch of stuff in the works dropping next month. We are truly, truly excited about it. Episode 200 is coming up. Fast and Furious. We only have about a month and a half until episode 200. We've got a lot of exciting announcements planned. So be on the lookout for that. It's one of those things I can't wait for. It's like one of those things I just want to come and want to be here so I can tell everybody. Because right now we're just keeping it amongst a small group of people. But I'm really pumped about it, and I think you guys will be too. All right, everybody. This has been Charge On. We will see you next week.